Thank you very much for joining us today. This is our next in our series of property owner webinars. And today we're going to talk about the 2021 protest process. So again, thank you for joining us. If you're not able to join us live, this will be put on our website and will be available at a later date for viewing. For any property owners that have a question, please use the Q&A. And at the end of the webinar, we'll follow back and answer as many questions as time will permit that we have, but hopefully we'll address and answer most of your questions as we go through the webinar and talk about the 2021 protest process. So the protest process, the deadline for filing your protest is going to be May 17th of 2021. We will be doing informals, and that's going to be, we started those April 19th, and those will continue through June 18th. And then the ARB hearings, the actual formal hearings, if you're not able to resolve your protest informally, will be done in the summer, starting in June and going through the end of August. The notice of appraised value got mailed out to property owners. Most property owners received theirs maybe 2 weeks ago. They went out April 17th. It's sent to every property owner whose value increased by at least $1,000 since the previous year. And on your notice of appraised value, you're going to see 3 different values on that. And it's important for you to understand exactly what those values are and what they mean so that you can make an informed decision about whether or not you want to protest your property value. The first number that we'll talk about is the market value, and that's what your property would sell for as of January 1st. There is no limit on market value. It is just a report of what has happened in the market for the previous year. So again, market value is what your property would sell for as of January 1st. A lot of you know that there's a limitation if you've got a homestead. That limitation is reflected in your assessed value. That's the reduced value of your property after your homestead limitation calculation. This is the one that is limited to 10% each year, and it's last year's assessed value plus 10%, or the current market value, whichever is lower. So again, the assessed value is the one that has the limitation. There is no limit on market value, but there is a limit on assessed value. And then your assessed value minus any exemptions that you might be able to claim becomes your taxable value. And the taxable value is what your property taxes are calculated against. And we did a webinar a couple weeks ago on your notice of appraised value and understanding your notice of appraised value. And we showed you where on the notice of appraised value all of those numbers come from. So I encourage you to go back to our webinars and watch that one if you missed it to get more information about that. But again, market value, there is no limit to the market value. It is a reflection of what has happened in the market in the past year. Assessed value is the one that does have the limitation. And then your assessed value minus any exemptions is your taxable value. And the taxable value is what is used to calculate your property taxes. So when you get your notice of appraised value, you see that your market value has increased substantially. We don't want you to panic. Don't panic. Please take a look at your assessed value. Typically, you'll see that your assessed value is substantially less than your market value. But even that aside, changes in the appraisal, the market value, are not the final determinant of how much you're going to pay in property taxes. There's more steps in the process. And the other step in the process that will affect how much you get and how much you pay in taxes is what are the budgets being determined by the taxing entities and what are the tax rates that are going to be set. The appraisal district, our job in appraising property is so that we can appraise them in an equal and uniform manner so that everybody pays their fair share based on the value of their property. So we kind of determine the size of the slice that you get of the pie, but the size of that pie is actually determined by the budget that is set by your taxing entities. So you'll see in the 2 examples, the green slice is about the same proportion of the total pie, but the bigger pie is a bigger slice. So the appraisal district is going to determine how big that slice is, but how big the actual pie, that's going to be determined by your taxing unit's budget and the tax rates that they set. More information is going to be available for you on the taxing units when they start setting their tax rates in August. And we have a website, travistaxes.com, that you can go to and you can pull up your specific property on that website. And you'll get more information about what is the budget being set by your taxing entity, how to contact your taxing entity, when are they having their hearings, and from that website, you can provide them feedback of what you'd like to see as a taxpayer in terms of reducing their budgets or setting a lower tax rate. So again, that is updated in August, and that's going to be available to you at travistaxes.com. And remember that very, very important part. But if you look at your market value and you think that the value that we assign to your property is not correct, you can protest your property value at the appraisal district. Remember, again, you are not protesting your taxes or the ability to afford the taxes. You are only protesting with the appraisal district the value that we assign to your property. Again, the deadline to file your protest is May 17th. And also be aware that when you're protesting your market value at the appraisal district, you're protesting the market value. The assessed value is a state mandated calculation. You can't protest that one. So even if you get a reduction in the market value, if it doesn't go below your property's assessed value, you may not see any change in your taxes at all. And again, on your notice of appraised value, those two numbers are on the notice of appraised value. They're at the top of the first page. Again, you'll see market value on the left-hand side, and then the assessed value is going to be on the right-hand side. And you can see this is a median house in Travis County, and there is a substantial difference between the market and the assessed value. So if you feel that you want to file a protest, how do you do that? We recommend the very first way that you should do it is doing it online on our website. If you go to our website, travistaxes.org/protest, it'll show you more information about how to file your protest, videos on how to get into the e-service portal and set up your user account. But doing it online is going to be the fastest and the easiest way. You'll get immediate confirmation that your protest has been filed and accepted. You can upload and review any evidence from the appraisal district and upload your evidence for the appraisal district to review. And then you'll also have the ability to accept or decline a settlement offer. Again, we've got videos that will walk you through the process on our website, traviscad.org/protests. But if you don't want to do it online or you don't have access to the internet, you can also do it in person. We have a drop box in the front of our office, and you can fill out the form that was included with your notice of appraised value and drop it off on our drop box, or you can do it by mail. If you're doing it by mail, please make sure that you drop it in the mail early enough that it gets a postmark before May 17th. Again, the deadline is May 17th. And anything received by mail has to be postmarked prior to the May 17th deadline. If you want to get the CAD evidence, again, there's two ways that you can get the CAD evidence. We, again, recommend doing it online. That is the fastest and easiest way. If you do it online, it's automatic. The appraisal district will upload your evidence to the portal, and you do not need to file or submit a written request to get your evidence. Or you can make the request by mail. You can put the request in writing, and it can either be a written request on your notice of protest that you mail in, or you can send in a separate written request to get your evidence. And if you do it by mail, that evidence will be mailed to you 14 days before your formal hearing. So if you would like it at the quickest way possible, doing it online is the recommended way that we suggest that you make your request for the CAD evidence. With the CAD evidence, the appraisal district is going to share with you the information that we have that we used to appraise your property. So you'll see what sales we used when we appraised your property. You'll see what we think are the most comparable properties for you for equity in making sure that you're being appraised fairly compared to your neighbors. That's all going to be included in the evidence packet that you get from the appraisal district. And again, the easiest, fastest way to get that is to do that online. The informal process, again, we started that April 19th. We'll continue to do informal meetings through June 18th. If you file online, you will get an electronic offer to settle from the appraisal district automatically. So when you file, you'll get that automatic e-file offer on the portal for filing your protest online. If you don't like the electronic offer, you can still get in line and come to do an informal meeting with the appraisal district through our Get in Line online process. But you will get the automatic offer if you file your protest electronically online. That does not occur if you just paper file your protest. Again, if somebody online files your protest and you get an offer, you can still come in and do an informal with the appraisal district. All of our informals are going to be done remotely. We're still in pandemic conditions, so they're going to be done over the phone with the appraiser. And it's going to be done on a first come, first served basis. But we've got a system called Get In Line Online to make it convenient for you to do your informal meeting with the appraisal district. We can only grant one meeting per property owner. So when you set up your meeting, make sure that you have all of your information and you're ready to talk to the appraiser, because we have too much capacity. We don't have enough capacity to give everybody multiple meetings. So we can only do one meeting per property owner. And then your evidence, if you've got information that you want the appraisal district to look at, needs to be submitted and processed beforehand so that we have it available to look at it while we're talking to you. And then any offers that we will make as a result of your informal meeting will be sent out within 48 hours. So the Get In Line Online, again, from April 19th through June 18th, we'll be doing informal meetings, and you can select whatever is most convenient for you. You can schedule an appointment time for sometime in the future, or you can get in line for the same day queue. Please be aware that if you are getting in line for the same day queue, people that have scheduled appointments will take priority. And then anybody that's getting in the queue for the same day, we will handle you in the order that you've gotten into the queue. So there may be a little bit more wait if you try to do the same day appointment. However, if you schedule your appointment time, the appraiser will call you at your appointment time. And again, to get in line online, go to our website, www.traviscad.org/protest, and look for the button that says Get In Line Online. And if you click that button, it's going to take you through the process. Another reminder for property owners, again, we'll be doing informals through June 18th. But availability is limited. We will only have so many days that we can do the informals, and we recommend that people do not wait until the last minute to try to get in line and get an informal with a appraiser. If everybody's trying to get in at the last minute, we're not going to be able to service everybody. So do not wait. Again, availability is limited. Get in line as soon as you can, and then you can get have a meeting with the appraiser. When you click the Get In Line Online button, it's going to ask you to provide your name and your phone number. And at your scheduled appointment time, an appraiser will give you a call at the number that you provided. And if your phone number accepts text messages, it'll send you a text message shortly before the appraiser calls you so that you're ready to accept that phone call. Again, that's the easiest way is to make that advanced appointment, because we'll call you at your appointment time, but you can also get in line on the same day, and you may have to wait a little bit longer if you try to do the same day. If you don't resolve your protest informally with an appraiser, then you do have the ability to go forward to the Appraisal Review Board. And the Appraisal Review Board is an independent body. They are members that are appointed by the local administrative judge. They are not TCAT employees. They are appointed by the local district judge. And we do not have any influence on what members are selected or any decisions that the members make. What the members will do at your scheduled hearing is they're going to listen to the arguments and the evidence presented by both the property owner and the appraisal district. And then at the end of the meeting, they will make a decision. A property owner will receive an official notice of the final order via certified mail after the formal hearing. If you're not satisfied with the decision made by the Appraisal Review Board, then you can also continue that protest and you can go to binding arbitration or district court after the ARB. So what can help me lower my property's market value? What do you need? The biggest thing is going to be evidence, but what kind of evidence do you need to present? Well, sales price is really important, because that's the goal. What the appraisal district is required to do is appraise properties as of January 1st and determine the market value, which is what would the property sell for as of that date. So any market data that you have regarding your property will be very compelling evidence that you can present to both the appraiser at your informal or to the Appraisal Review Board at your formal hearing. If you have purchased your home in the last year for less than the market value that the appraisal district assigned, then present us with a signed and dated closing statement. And that's sometimes called a settlement statement. We're looking for sales from January 1st of 2020 forward, because the appraisal calendar, the data that we're looking at when we're appraising for 2021 is we looked at any sales from January 1st of 2020 through the entire year through the end of February of 2021. So we're looking at about a month plus a year plus a couple months of data, but we're looking at what has occurred already in the market. So again, if you purchased your house after January 1st of 2020, and what you bought your house for is less than the market value that we assigned, your closing statement is a very compelling piece of evidence that you can present to the appraisal district. If you haven't bought your house, go talk to a local realtor or broker and ask if they can provide you with some comparable sales. And the sales report that they should provide you and give you should include the address of the comparables they're using, the date of sale, and the sales price amount. And you want to make sure that the comparable homes are similar to yours in terms of size and stories, age, quality of construction, and any amenities that it might have, like pools and decks. And again, the sales time frame that you're going to want to look for is anywhere from January 1st of 2020 through February 28th of 2021. That's the time frame that the appraisal district used. So any comparable sales that you might have that you are able to get from a realtor or broker can also be compelling evidence of the market value of your property. Something else that you might want to look at is look at your property characteristics and make sure that they're correct. And you can check the appraisal district's website. You can go to, again, traviscad.org, do a property search, look up your property, and look at the characteristics that we have on your property. Make sure that we're correct in our items, such as the square footage. If we've got you listed as having a pool or a garage or a fireplace, is that accurate? Be aware that when you're looking at the square footage, that the appraisal district does measurements of all houses from the exterior. So we measure from the outside. So if you're comparing square footage that you got from your builder, make sure that that square footage from your builder is from outside dimensions and not interior dimensions, because there is a difference. But because we need to treat all properties the same, the one way that the appraisal district can measure all properties the same, because we can't go into every home, is to do the measurements from the exterior. And that's how we measure properties. So again, look for the square footage of the property and make sure it's accurate. If you make a request from the appraisal district for your property information and for your evidence, you will get an appraisal card. And on that appraisal card will be a sketch that we have of your property, and it'll show the length of each wall that we measured. We round to the nearest foot, but you can also go around your house with a tape measure and verify that those are accurate when you're looking at the square footage. If it's a house that you just had built or recently had built, you should get some as-built construction plans, and they should have the dimensions. So you can also provide us with your as-built construction plans, and we will calculate the square footage from that. Or if you've recently had a fee appraisal done, you can look at a fee appraisal would have a sketch included, and you can submit a copy of that sketch as well to the appraisal district. But again, making sure that your property characteristics, because we do take into consideration the characteristics of each individual property when we're appraising them, making sure your characteristics are correct is one way that we can ensure that your market value is being done as fairly and as accurately as possible. The other thing that you can do is if you have any specific property damage, or if your property is in need of some costly repairs, you can present us with current photos of the problem. And if you've got a contractor bid for renovations or repairs or new construction that have been dated within the past year, you can submit those bids for renovation or correction. Or if you've got an engineer's report, say you've got some foundation issues and you've got an engineer's report with a cost to repair or any bids to do that work, you can include that as well. Or if you've got an insurance settlement report, you can include that as well. I know a lot of property owners suffered some damage because of the flood or the ice storm. Unfortunately, the ice storm happened after January 1st. So we are required to appraise the property as of January 1st. And since the ice storm didn't happen until mid-February, those damages from the ice storm would not be eligible for consideration for 2021, but they would be considerable for appraisals in 2022. So for this year, because of the timing and the date of when the disaster occurred and when that happened, you would not be able to get any reduction on your appraisal because of the ice storm damage. But that is something that you may want to keep in your back pocket and use to present next year when the appraisals come out. Other helpful documents that you can present, if you've got a survey for floodplain, if you're in the floodplain, providing us with your survey or your floodplain information. If you're in the process of building your house and it's not 100% complete, giving us a copy of your construction draw information, how much you have paid so far in your construction, will be very helpful. If you've recently refinanced your house to take advantage of some of the lower interest rates, you probably got a fee appraisal done. So if you have a recent fee appraisal done within the last year, you can submit a copy of your fee appraisal. It's got to be a complete signed fee appraisal, but you can submit that as well. And if you're a commercial property owner and you've got an operating statement or rent rolls with 3-year history, we can look at that when we're looking at evidence for commercial properties. If you need to submit your evidence at the appraisal district, it needs to be submitted and processed in advance of either your informal or your formal hearing. Again, we recommend that you do it online. That is the quickest and easiest way to do it. If you do it online, you can do it the day before. But if you're going to do it by dropping it off at the drop box or doing it by mail, you do need to allow some processing time and for time for it to arrive to us in the mail. So we recommend that you submit that 10 to 15 days in advance if you're going to do it by mail, and certainly in advance if you're going to do it by Dropbox, because we have to assemble it and attach it into the system. So again, we recommend doing it online on the online portal. That is the quickest and easiest way to submit your evidence that you would like the ARB or the appraisal district to consider at either your informal or your formal meeting. Things to avoid when you're doing your formal hearing. Again, waiting until the deadline. Please don't wait until the deadline to file your protest. Don't wait until the deadline to even file it online. We're going to get a lot of people that have procrastinated, and there's going to be some system slowdowns just because of the demand at the very end. So we do not recommend that you wait until the deadline to take care of your business. Get in early as you can. If you want to meet with an appraiser informally, again, we recommend getting in line as quickly as possible, because again, there's going to be a lot of demand at the end, and we want to make sure that we get an opportunity to talk to everybody, but we can't do that if everybody waits until the last minute. Another thing to be very cautious of is just comparing a price per square foot. There are a lot of things that we incorporate in our appraisals, in our appraisal models, and it's not a strictly price per square foot comparison. There are some economy of scales that are incorporated in our models. And when I say economy of scales, what that means is, the bigger you build, the less it costs per unit. It's kind of like if you buy a 12-pack of soda at the grocery store, you're going to pay less buying that 12-pack than you would if you bought 12 individual cans of Coke. And that same thing applies when you're talking about building a house. The larger the square footage is, the smaller the unit cost per square foot. So when you're comparing your house on a price per square foot, you've got to make real sure that the houses that you're comparing are very similar in almost the same square footage. There's also an economy of scale when you talk about a single-story house versus a 2-story house. It's a little bit cheaper to build up because you don't have to pour all the foundation that you would have to on a single-story house. And then the other thing that is incorporated in our appraisal models are, again, all the amenities that you might have that might be different. So if you're comparing your price per square foot and you've got a swimming pool and an outdoor kitchen, and you're comparing your house in its square footage, price per square foot, to a house that doesn't have either a pool or an outdoor kitchen, then there's going to be a difference. So you've got to make sure that you're looking at those characteristics between all the properties that you are comparing. The other thing that you want to avoid is arguing about your property taxes or tax increases. Again, the role of the appraisal district is just to determine the market value. We do not set the budgets for the taxing entities, and we do not set the tax rates. So your ultimate tax bill is not something that the appraisal districts can address. So you do not want to talk about or argue about the property taxes or the increase in your taxes that you've seen. That's not something that the appraisal district can address. We can only talk about the market value and the appraisal that we have assigned to your property. If you have trouble paying your property taxes, what can you do? Well, the biggest thing that you can do is file for your homestead exemptions. And there's a general residential homestead exemption. There's an over 65 or disabled persons exemption, a disabled veterans or surviving spouse. And you qualify for the exemptions if the property is your principal place of residence and you owned and occupied it on January 1st of the year. So again, either a general residence exemption has to be your principal place of residence, you owned and occupied it on January 1st of the year, you're entitled to claim that exemption. Or if you're over 65, a disabled person, a disabled veteran, a surviving spouse, there are additional exemptions that you can claim for being one of those qualified individuals. The deadline to file an exemption is April 30th, but you can file a late application for an exemption, either a general homestead exemption or over 65 and disabled person, disabled veteran, up to 2 years late. So if you forgot to file your exemption 2 years ago, you can still file a late application. And what we'll do is we'll go back and we will apply that exemption 2 years back. You may get a refund if you paid taxes without the exemption. So again, it's not too late to file your homestead exemption, and there's a lot of benefits for the homestead exemption. If you've got the residence homestead exemption, again, that limitation on the assessed value only kicks in if you've got a homestead. So you get the benefit of the assessed value limitation. If you're over 65 or a disabled person, you're going to get the benefit of the tax ceiling on your school taxes. And since school taxes represent over 50% of your total tax bill, getting those frozen so that they don't increase year over year is a tremendous benefit to property owners. So we encourage anybody that may be entitled to file an exemption to file it with the appraisal district. Again, you can go to our website, traviscad.org, and file your application online. Also, if you are over 65 or a disabled person or a veteran and you're struggling to pay your tax bills, you can also request a deferral on your taxes. I would say if you've got a mortgage, you may want to check with your mortgage company before you opt for the deferral, but you can opt and request to get a deferral on your taxes. And we have more information on deferrals on our website. And then the last thing is just be involved in the process. We talked earlier about the tax rates and when they get set, and that information is going to be available on our website, travistaxes.com. And we encourage you to go out to that website in August and avail yourself of all that information and participate in that tax rate and budget setting process, because that can also have a substantial impact on your property taxes. We've got just a few minutes left, and let me see if I can get to some questions. I won't be able to get to all of them, but we certainly will get to as many of them as we can. The first question is, if taxes are determined by assessed value, how protesting market value is meaningful? Yeah, so the appraisal district appraises the property and determines the market value. Protesting the market value will be most meaningful if the reduction that you get is going to take your value below your assessed value. If it doesn't take it below the assessed value, it may not make any difference at all in your tax savings for you, because again, taxes are calculated based on the assessed value minus any exemptions that you may get. And because you have a homestead, you have that protection of having that assessed value limited. So that's one of the things that you may want to consider before you file your protest. The next question is, can we request the TCAD evidence before we protest? That way we can consider the facts available to you, but are generally not available to the homeowners, so that we can better informed estimates of market value, whether or not we can decide to file a protest. Unfortunately, Texas is a non-disclosure state, and the sales information that we get is considered to be confidential, and we can only release that information if a protest has been filed. So we cannot provide that information to you before you file a protest. But if you file your protest, and again, I recommend you do it online, we'll submit that evidence to you on the portal. You can review that, and if after reviewing it, you decide that you're good with the value that we've put, you can withdraw your protest. So I would recommend filing your protest, making your request for the evidence if you're going to do it by paper, or filing your protest online. We will submit that evidence to you, and if you decide that you understand the values that we put on it and feel that they're fair, you can just withdraw your protest. Should I include my evidence with my protest request that will be dropped off at your office? Absolutely, you can include your evidence with the protest if you drop it off with our office. Everything that you include in your protest is scanned to our to the images, and we will incorporate that in the process. So yes, you can include your evidence with your protest. We absolutely recommend that if you're somebody that recently purchased your home and you've got your settlement statement, if you include that, again, those are really compelling pieces of evidence to include in your protest and would really help you. I've got one more question that I can get to. The question is why are you willing to include sales comps from January 1st to February 28th for determining the market value, but not include damage from that time frame as well, like the ice storm we just mentioned? Yeah, we are trying to determine what the market value is as of January 1st. We go just to the benefit of the property owner a few months beyond the 1st of January, but by law, we cannot include the damage of the ice storm because our assessment date is January 1st. Most of our sales are going to occur prior to the January 1st timeline. But there may be a few sales that kind of give us a feel for the market as to whether or not it's continuing to go up or go down. If you've got more information that you want to include or any sales that you want to provide as part of your evidence packet that occurred beyond February, you are welcome to join that because it's all an indication of market value. But just legally, legislatively, we cannot include any damage that happened because of the ice storm when we're doing our appraisals. Now, there is an exemption for property owners that were affected by the ice storm. And it is a temporary exemption for damage due to a disaster. And because a disaster was declared by the governor, you may be eligible to qualify for that exemption. However, by statute, by state law, you have to have suffered at least 15% damage on your improvement in order to qualify for that exemption. And that's a pretty high hurdle that was set by the legislature in order to get that exemption. And that exemption would apply for 2021, but you've got to meet the qualifications for that. And again, the qualification for getting that exemption is you have to have had a minimum of 15% damage. And we just, as the appraisal district, we can only follow the laws that we were given. And that was the laws that were set for that disaster exemption. But again, if you think that you've had at least 15% damage to your property due to the ice storm, that exemption for the disaster is on our website, and we encourage you to submit your application for the disaster exemption. The deadline for filing the disaster exemption is May 28th. So make sure that you get that filed timely. If you're going to do that, you'll need to file the application and then submit the supplementing documents that you have to prove that you had at least 15% damage to your improvement. And we are out of time. Again, I want to thank you for your time and attention. We hope that we've given you a lot of good information that you can utilize for the protest process this year. And again, anybody that you know of that wasn't able to attend live, please let them know that this is going to be on our website, on our webinar page, and they can come back and look at the recorded session that we just did. And again, thank you, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.